The pharyngeal apparatus is the today's topic. The pharyngeal apparatus is important for the development of the head and neck region. If you see the human embryo at the time of fourth week, it resembles somewhat the fish embryo. That's why this apparatus was previously termed as branchial apparatus. Branchia means gill of the fish. Pharyngeal arches, how do they develop? They develop early in the fourth week, mainly because of the neural crest cells. We have learnt this neural crest cells are the cells which are formed at the margins of the ectoderm when it gives rise to the neural tube development. So these neural crest cells is important in this development of the pharyngeal arch. When they migrate into these arches, then only these arches will be forming in the complete form. So this is how the starting of the development of the pharyngeal arches, as resembling the fish of the fish gill. The same, you can see again this pharyngeal arches in this image also. If you see at the end of the fourth week, 6 pairs of pharyngeal arches are visible externally. You should number them in the craniocaudal sequence. But the fifth is rudimentary in form. Each pharyngeal arch, what does it contain? It consists of this core of mesenchyme. Now only we told this neural crest mesenchyme mainly. It is covered externally by the ectoderm and internally by the endoderm. These pharyngeal arches are separated from each other by the fissures called pharyngeal clefts on the ectodermal side. On the endodermal side, they are called as fissures called as pouches. If you see, then when I tell this pharyngeal clefts, you should all think that, or you should all now ask me a question, how these clefts are not visible in the head and neck region in the adult. Yes, these clefts are not visible except our external acoustic meatus. So if you just again look into this, how this happens, the second pharyngeal arch enlarges and overgrows the third and fourth arches, so that it covers all these clefts, so that the gap between this clefts and this overgrowth will be called as cervical sinus. By the end of the 7th week, so all these grooves and this have disappeared and giving the neck a smooth contour. So this is, in this image you can see how this second pharyngeal arch is overgrowing and covering all the pharyngeal clefts. Then this cervical sinus is also closed, so that in the adult no remnant of this cervical sinus will be present. The first pharyngeal arch will be called as mandibular arch. Mandibular arch is mainly giving rise to two parts, maxillary and mandibular part. So this first arch mainly develops the major role in the facial development. The second pharyngeal arch will be called as hyoid arch. It will contribute mainly to the formation of the hyoid bone. So this questions may be for you, the mandibular arch. Then you should write about the first pharyngeal arch. Hyoid arch, if it is the question, you should write about the second pharyngeal arch. So this is the first pharyngeal arch, which is containing two parts, maxillary and mandibular prominence. So what are the derivatives of the pharyngeal arch? So if you see each pharyngeal arch, it will give rise to bony components, muscle derivatives. It will have the nerve of its own, it will have the artery of its own. So if you are asked any theory question in this pharyngeal arch, you should write as 4 parts: bony derivatives, muscle derivatives, nerve of the arch, and artery of the arch. Each, so that each point will be having separate 1 mark or half mark according to the question. So now we will see first bony derivatives of the each arches. First arch cartilage is Meckel cartilage. Meckel cartilage, it gives rise to malleus, incus, and also the anterior ligament of the malleus and sphenomandibular ligament. This Meckel cartilage also give rise to mainly to the mandible. So these are the main bony derivatives of the first arch. So again, if you see in this picture, in the upper part, you can see malleus, incus, and that ligament, anterior ligament of the malleus and sphenomandibular ligament, and also this main mandible development is from the first arch. Second arch. The second arch question is Richet cartilage. The question may be for you again, as I told, mandibular arch, hyoid arch. Sometimes the questions may be the Meckel cartilage. Then you have to write only the bony derivatives of the first arch. That is, the Meckel cartilage is the cartilage of the first arch. You have to write about the derivatives of that first arch mainly. If the question is Richet cartilage, then that is the second arch cartilage. You have to write the derivatives of the second arch. So this second arch, when you see the derivatives, middle ear ossicles, malleus and incus have been already given by the first arch. So the remaining stapes will be given by the second arch. Next is the styloid process of the temporal bone. You can remember SS, stapes and styloid process. And also this second arch cartilage gives rise to the part of the hyoid bone also, lesser cornu and upper part of the body of the hyoid bone. So not all the parts of the hyoid bone is given by the second arch, only upper part of the body and the lesser cornu of the hyoid bone will be given by the second arch. If you see the third arch, the remaining parts of the hyoid bone, what are the remaining parts? Greater cornu and lower part of the body of the hyoid bone will be given by the third arch. Otherwise, if you are asked how the hyoid bone develops, then you should remember it is derived mainly from 2 arches, second arch and third arch. Second arch gives rise to a upper part of the body and one horn, lesser horn, and the third arch gives rise to the lower part of the body and the greater horn. So that this completes the first arch bony derivatives, second arch bony derivatives, third arch bony derivatives we have completed. If you see the remaining fourth and sixth arch, already we have told fifth arch is rudimentary, so it is not going to give rise to much derivatives, any bony derivatives or any derivatives. So this fourth and sixth arch are cartilages fuses to form the remaining, what are the remaining parts or cartilages in the neck region, that is the epiglottis. So that the remaining cartilages except epiglottis will be derived from this. So the epiglottis, you should remember, will be derived from some other part of the hypobranchial eminence that we will be dealing in the development of the tongue. So the remaining cartilages of the larynx except epiglottis, what are the cartilages? Thyroid, cricoid. So that will be the main derivatives of the fourth arch and sixth arch cartilage. So this picture, if you see again, first arch derivatives we have told already, malleus, incus and the mandible mainly. Second arch derivatives, stapes, styloid process and upper part of the body and lesser horn. Third arch derivatives, lower part of the body and the greater cornu. Fourth and sixth arch derivatives, thyroid cartilage and cricoid cartilage. So we have completed one part of this pharyngeal arch derivatives, that is the bony derivatives. Now we will come to the nerves of the pharyngeal arches. Mandibular nerve is the nerve of the first pharyngeal arch. So that one way the students can remember these nerves is, you can remember that first arch, what are the muscles, then that will be supplied by the mandibular nerve. Otherwise, what are the muscles that are supplied by mandibular nerve will be the derivatives of the first pharyngeal. Similarly, all the nerves you can remember in two ways. So the first arch nerve, mandibular nerve. Second arch nerve, facial nerve. Third arch nerve, glossopharyngeal nerve. Fourth arch is supplied by the superior laryngeal branch of the vagus nerve. And the sixth arch is the recurrent laryngeal nerve. So these are the nerves of the pharyngeal arches. So that nerve, which the muscles which are supplied by these nerves will be the derivatives of the corresponding arches. That is the way we can remember. Again, now we will come to the muscles of the pharyngeal arches. I hope still now we are clear in understanding the two parts we have completed in the pharyngeal arches, bony derivatives and then the nerves of the arches. Now we will come to the muscles of the arches. As I told, the mandibular nerve supplies 8 muscles. They are the first pharyngeal arch derivatives. 8 muscles, in that 4 muscles are the muscles of mastication: temporalis, masseter, lateral and medial pterygoid. These 4 muscles, apart from that, other 4 muscles are supplied by the mandibular nerve: tensor veli palatini, tensor tympani, anterior belly of digastric muscle, mylohyoid muscle. So these muscles, this may be you may be having some now problem in understanding the names of the muscles, as you have not completed the neck muscles. But for time being, you can take this first 4 muscles as muscles of mastication. This tensor veli palatini will be present in the soft palate. Tensor tympani will be related to the middle ear. And the other 2 muscles are the neck muscles. This digastric will have 2 bellies, anterior belly and posterior belly. One belly, this is anterior belly, is now supplied by the mandibular nerve. This posterior belly will be supplied by the facial nerve. That is the second arch. The second pharyngeal arch gives this following muscles, which are now supplied by the facial nerve. So what are the muscles supplied by facial nerve? Stapedius, stylohyoid, posterior belly of digastric. So digastric, now only we told anterior belly is supplied by mandibular nerve, posterior belly is supplied by the facial nerve. Auricular muscles, muscles of facial expression and platysma, all these are supplied by the facial nerve. So all these muscles develop from the second pharyngeal arch. Third arch forms the stylopharyngeus. So this arch is very easy for the students, I hope, because only one muscle in this arch, that is the stylopharyngeus, that is supplied by the glossopharyngeal nerve. Fourth arch forms this cricothyroid and constrictors of the pharynx. 3 constrictors will be present in the pharynx: superior constrictor, middle constrictor and inferior constrictor. So this mainly pharyngeal muscles are supplied by given by the fourth arch, and also this cricothyroid, that is the muscle of the larynx. Now can you tell which is the nerve of the fourth arch? Fourth arch is nerve is superior laryngeal. So that superior laryngeal nerve supplies this cricothyroid muscle. Sixth pharyngeal arch gives rise to the intrinsic muscles of the larynx except cricothyroid, you should remember. So that all these sixth arch muscles will be now supplied by the recurrent laryngeal nerve except cricothyroid, which will be supplied by the superior laryngeal nerve. This completes this derivatives of the pharyngeal arch, bony components, muscle derivatives, and we have also learned what are the nerves supplying these muscles. So they are the nerves of the pharyngeal arches. So this picture gives rise to the muscles of head and neck region develop mainly from the pharyngeal arch. So we have told muscles of mastication mainly from first arch, facial muscles mainly from the second arch, stylopharyngeus from the third arch, the constrictors of the pharynx and the cricothyroid from the fourth arch, and all the intrinsic muscles of the larynx except cricothyroid from the sixth arch. So now we will see pharyngeal pouches. So we have learnt the main derivatives of the arches. We told on the outer side they are the depressions called clefts. On the inner side that will be called as the pharyngeal pouches. So pharyngeal pouches, there are 5 pouches. First pair of pouch lie in between the first and second arch. Then the second will be lying in between the second and third arch, like that. So there are five pairs of pharyngeal pouches developing. In this, fifth pair is very rudimentary, or we can take it as absent. So now these pouches give rise. What are the derivatives which are given from the pouches? We have to learn. Now this pharyngeal pouches, this endoderm contacts the ectoderm, so that they form the double layered pharyngeal membranes. So on the other side, this cleft is lined by the ectoderm, pouch is lined by the endoderm. First pharyngeal pouch. First pharyngeal pouch, we have to remember mainly this pharyngeal pouch. We can remember on the inner side, what is that depression on the inner side. If you take middle ear and auditory tube, that will be mainly given by this first pouch. That will be in the beginning it will be appearing like a tubotympanic recess. This tubotympanic recess mainly gives rise to the tympanic cavity, that is the otherwise called as the middle ear, and the mastoid antrum. The second pharyngeal pouch mainly gives rise to the development of the tonsil, gives rise to the development of the tonsil. So that if you have learnt in the histology that tonsillar cleft, that represents this derivative of the second pharyngeal pouch. So first pharyngeal pouch in this picture you can see that is mainly giving rise to the tubotympanic recess. Second pharyngeal pouch gives rise to the palatine tonsil. Third pharyngeal pouch gives rise to 2 parts. So if you are very much interested in learning these 2 parts, otherwise you leave this and at least you remember what are developed from this. So the third pharyngeal pouch gives rise to the inferior parathyroid gland and the thymus. So the first which develop is inferior parathyroid gland, so that they will migrate along with the thymus. So this thymus, and later if you see they lose their connections with the pharynx, so that this thymus reaches the neck, and the parathyroid gland is present in the posterior part of the thyroid. So the third pharyngeal pouch, inferior parathyroid gland and the thymus. This fourth pouch gives rise to the superior parathyroid gland. So superior parathyroid glands from the fourth pouch and inferior parathyroid gland from the third pouch. This fifth pharyngeal pouch. This fifth pharyngeal pouch is rudimentary. Even though it is rudimentary, it forms it becomes a part of the fourth pharyngeal pouch, so that remaining the fourth pharyngeal pouch, what does it give rise to? Already we learned that it gives rise to the development of the superior parathyroid glands. So apart from that, a part of the fourth pouch joins with this rudimentary fifth pouch, so that it will be called as caudal pharyngeal complex. So this may be the short notes for you. Caudal pharyngeal complex. So what is caudal pharyngeal complex is a part of the fourth arch and joining with the a part of the fourth pouch joining with the fifth pouch will be called as the caudal pharyngeal complex. What does it give rise to? It gives rise to 3 elements: lateral thymic element, thyroid element, and ultimobranchial body, which gives rise to the C cells of the thyroid gland. What is this lateral thymic element? We already told this thymus develops from the third pouch. So the central part of the thymus develops from this third pouch. The lateral parts of the thymus develops from this caudal pharyngeal complex. Again, this thyroid element, if you see, thyroid mainly we will see again in the next classes. It develops from the development of thyroglossal duct. So the main parts of thyroid gland develops from the thyroglossal duct, but this the lateral parts of the thyroid gland lobes will be derived from this caudal pharyngeal complex. Also the C cells of the thyroid gland. So we have finished the pharyngeal pouches, pharyngeal cleft or the pharyngeal grooves. So what is the only cleft in the head and neck region is the external acoustic meatus. So except that the remaining clefts are already overgrown by the second arch. So this first pharyngeal cleft gives rise to the external acoustic meatus, that is the only derivative of the pharyngeal cleft. The pharyngeal membranes means we told the contact of the ectoderm and endoderm. So only the first pharyngeal membrane gives rise to the tympanic membrane. Others are obliterated by the overgrowth of the second arch. So this is mainly the what happens in this development of the pharyngeal apparatus. Any abnormality, if you see branchial sinus or branchial cyst or fistula, that is, we told the cervical sinus develops in the when the second arch overgrows to covers the pharyngeal clefts. That gap will be called as the cervical sinus. If any remnant of this cervical sinus is present, then it will be giving rise to the development in the adult branchial sinus or the branchial fistula. In the picture you can see, but it will not be on the midline swelling or midline fistula. It will be on sides of the midline. That may be giving you a clue that it may be the branchial cyst or the branchial fistula. So this completes the development of the pharyngeal apparatus class. We have learnt in detail the development of the pharyngeal arches, pharyngeal clefts, pharyngeal pouches, pharyngeal membranes. So this completes this pharyngeal apparatus. The remaining related head and neck embryology we will see in the next class.